Today we're going to get into the story of David and Goliath. This is the story of David and Goliath as told in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 17. We're going to read the whole chapter. That's going to be the whole thing. Starting at verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shoshak, which belonged to Judah, and pitched between Shoshak and Azekah in Epithdammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span, which is said to be 9 foot 9 inches tall.
Bruh.
That's how tall Goliath was. A cubit is 18 inches. A span is half of that, which would be 9 inches. Altogether, it's 9 foot 9 inches tall is what the man was. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, which is armor. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. 5,000 shekels is going to equate to 125 pounds. Each shekel is about 25 pounds. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. That's about 15 pounds right there. Okay. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are you come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. So in other words, he was saying, why'd you get this set up? Because they set up, when you go to battle, you go to war, you have a certain type of formation that you do. You look presentable, ready to go type of deal. He said, why did you do all that? What you doing that for? You ain't about nothing. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants? But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that he may fight, that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephraimite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and the next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest. And the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brother an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captains of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take thy pledge. So he's telling them now to take some ephah of parched corn, which is equivalent to one bushel, which is 33 liters in weight, that is. Then he told them in verse 18, let's go back. He said, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brother fare. In other words, see how they doing. He wanted to see how they was doing and bring proof of them, of their well-being. That's what he meant by it, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. Again, they were in formation. They were set up, getting ready to face each other. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brother. He was ready to go. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion of the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. They didn't have to pay any more taxes. And David spake to the man that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and take away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? So in other words, what shall be done to the man that killeth the Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? In other words, taking away all the credit that Israel is about, making them look like they're not about that life, pretty much. Just discrediting them. Then it says, and taketh away the reproach from Israel, for who is there this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? So he's wondering, like, who is this man? Who do he think he is to go against the armies of the living God? Who's this heathen that's going to go against the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down here? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? So he's asking, why'd you come down here? Who you leave the sheep with? I know thy pride and thy naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. He's saying that you just came here to watch. You came down here to see. Being disobedient, he feels as though he came down to be disobedient and just wanted to see what was going on down there. And Eliab, his eldest brother, okay, where we at? 29. Let's go 29. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. So he went to see Saul. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he is a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armored David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail, gave him some armor as well. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. He didn't prove it, meaning he wasn't familiar with it. He didn't know about that armor. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off. So he took them off. He didn't know, he wasn't used to that. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of a brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip, and a sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David. And the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and a fair countenance. Ruddy meaning he was like his cheeks, like rosy cheeks type of deal. Because he was something nice to look at. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? In other words, sticks, a stick. And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the hosts of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God of it in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead. Like the Philistine sunk into his forehead, the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until thou come to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to the Shaaraim, even unto Gab and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. They put their stuff away. Everything's done now. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, where he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thou soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. In other words, who's this young man? And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite.